as less and less of our funds come from the state government, how do we, first of all, maintain our preeminence, but secondly, how do we guarantee our public character? Because we must not compromise on that. As I've said often, the country has many great private universities, Stanford, Harvard, et cetera, and it doesn't need another one. It needs great public universities. And how are we going to do that in an environment where the state is progressively disinvesting?
What is it about Berkeley, right, that stands out, that's different from some other universities?
What are we trying to do?
There is something about Berkeley that's different, a sense of the future, a diversity, and a sense of an ideal. And that ideal really was, right, that people should be able to study, even if they weren't members of an elite, that people should have different kinds of ideas, that somehow this would be for the future of the state of California and the future of a very diverse population.
Shelley's predecessor as vice provost, Jan de Vries once said, "You have to combine passion with discernment." And when I think of that, and I've thought of it often, what it suggests is that the coin of the realm in academia is rational argumentation and marshaling of evidence. And that's where the discernment part comes in. Passion is necessary for a variety of reasons: to maintain your morale, to maintain the perception of you as committed, and in order to energize you to pursue the ambitions. But discernment is equally important. And so you'll probably be talking about this later when you're talking about the preparation of academic personnel cases. Have faith that you have a better chance of convincing people of what you want done, whether it's in academic personnel cases or in other forms of advocacy. Have faith that rational argumentation and the marshaling of evidence, as opposed to mere cheerleading, is the coin of the realm. And people who succumb to just cheerleading and don't back up their cheers with the evidence and the logic get very, very frustrated, because whether it's the budget committee or the dean or the vice provost or myself, we see through that, and we don't reward cheerleading. We do reward making a good case.
I just want to stress the importance of learning your students' names. Usually you only learn your students' names who are really bad, so you can be like, "Hey, Jordan, stop playing video games on your cell phone," or "Good job, Maria, thanks for answering that question again." So usually there's like 3 people you know the names of, but knowing everyone's names really makes them feel like they're part of the class and makes them feel like they can't hide in the back quietly. Something that comes up a lot and that I kind of heard from circulating around is the not knowing the answer to a question when a student asks the question. My solution to that is bringing a laptop with me, especially in labs where students are doing other things. They come up to you with a question, you're like, "Ooh, I do not know the word for that," or "I don't know the answer to whatever concept you're talking about." So I Google it, and I'll just sit right there in front of them. Students don't care at all. Students are really forgiving, and you can mess up and you can not know the answer. As long as you get them the answer or tell them that's a really interesting question and get back to them, you don't need to know everything. I'm a pretty laid-back teacher, but when it comes to consequences, being really strict on consequences helps. A lot of GSIs want to be friends with their students just because they're your age. You know what they're going through. But it makes teaching a lot more difficult, especially when they come to you and they're like, "If I don't get a B- in this class, I'm gonna get kicked out of the whole class. I'm gonna get kicked out of school. I'm on academic probation. That's the end of my life." If you're friends with them, it's really hard to be like, "Sorry, you're still getting a C." That actually happened to me last semester. It's really sad, but yes.
Should the bar be like, I am trying to help these people become potential grad students, or is it, I should figure out what the least of them is capable of and then set the bar there? Or like, it's probably gonna differ from class to class, but I don't know how much from the top down is really gonna come. So like when you're talking about, you seem to imply there's a lot of latitude, at least in some of these sections. I mean, should it really be like, struggle through one paper and I'll pat you on the back? Or is it like, you should be able to read 5 in the course of 2 months and then synthesize them meaningfully? Like.
That's a good question, and that's an individual decision. You have to think about what you want your students to get out of your section. And if you think about that, you're way ahead of most GSIs, because I think most GSIs just are like, this is gonna pay for my tuition, just barrel through it. But if you think, what do I want my students to get out of this? When I go in, I want my students to learn how to read scientific journal articles, because I didn't learn that until I had already graduated undergrad. I want them to learn how to write. I want them to learn how to think critically. So everyone has different goals. And you just have to think about what teaching means to you and what you want your students to get out of it. And then that'll really dictate how you run your sections.